comes to cars that sparked heated debates and divided opinions, the 1971 Buick Riviera Boattail stands tall, a wild, rule-breaking design that either stole hearts or shocked onlookers. This wasn't just any car on the road. It was a bold statement that dared to be different, leaving people either hooked or horrified. Let me take you back to how this car came to be and why it was so different from other cars. The original idea and early design. The story of the Boattail Riviera starts in a special design studio at Buick, run by a man named Jerry Hirschberg. His team was dreaming of making a smaller and narrower car than the one that finally hit the streets. The plan was to build it on a smaller car platform, the A-body platform, which was used for cars like the Chevrolet Monte Carlo and Pontiac Grand Prix. This smaller size was important because it allowed the designers to create the sleek, sharp look that Bill Mitchell wanted. Bill loved a design style with a spear shape running along the side of the car, which reminded people of some old European car designs that he really admired. In 1968, the designers made a clay model of the car. This model had smooth and flowing shapes that looked very elegant and aerodynamic, meaning it could cut through the air easily. It was different from the final car in many ways. This smaller and sharper design never made it to production, but it showed the team's early vision. Bill Mitchell was a big figure in the car industry. He started working for General Motors when he was only 23 years old because he had a special talent for drawing racing cars. Just a year later, he was put in charge of the Cadillac Design Studio. One of his first big successes was the 1938 Cadillac 60 Special. This car had unique features for its time, like a long trunk and a special roof with windows that looked like they belonged on a luxury train. This three-box sedan style, with a separate trunk, roof, and hood, became very popular for many years. Bill's love for beautiful and fast cars grew from seeing some fancy European cars, especially at a big auto show in Paris. One of the cars that inspired him was a Panhard 6CS Panoramic. It had curved windows and a long trunk, which influenced the Cadillac designs later. Even though Bill admired these elegant cars, he also loved fastbacks, cars where the roof slopes down smoothly to the back. He worked on many Corvette designs over the years, mixing sharp edges with flowing lines. One of the most famous Corvettes was the 1963 Stingray, which had a split window at the back and a sharp shape that looked like a fish's fin. Bill was very involved in designing this car and even had strong opinions that sometimes led to arguments with other engineers. At the same time, Bill helped create another classic car, the 1963 Buick Riviera. This car was designed to compete with the popular Ford Thunderbird, which had become a favorite personal car for people who wanted something sporty but still luxurious. The Riviera had a sharp roofline inspired by a Rolls-Royce Bill once saw through fog in London. He was proud of this design and said it was one of his favorites. Over the years, the Riviera grew bigger and softer in style. By 1970, it had become heavier and less sporty, with design changes like rear fender skirts that made it look more like a mature, comfortable car instead of a sharp personal cruiser. Sales were falling, and Buick and Bill wanted to bring back the magic, the platform change and its effects. Now, here's where things got complicated. Bill wanted the new 1971 Riviera to be special. He dreamed of bringing back the bold boat tail style, inspired by classic cars from the 1920s and 30s like the Auburn Speedster. These old cars had a beautiful pointed rear end that looked fast and elegant. Bill's idea was to mix that old-school charm with modern design, giving the Riviera a unique look. A designer named Don DeHarsh created a small model that Bill really liked. This model had a fastback shape like the Corvette Stingray, combined with a strong boat tail at the back. It was a bold step, and the Buick Advanced Studio, led by Jerry Hirschberg, took this idea and made it bigger and more detailed. The team worked hard to make this dream car real, drawing sketches and building clay models. But just as things seemed to be moving in the right direction, General Motors made a big decision that changed everything. Instead of building the Riviera on the smaller, sharper A-body platform, they decided to use the bigger B-body platform. This was the same platform used for bigger cars like the Toronado and Eldorado. This change was mainly pushed by Buick's general manager Lee Mays. He wanted the car to be built on a platform that was already being used a lot, so it would cost less to make. This made sense for the company's business, but it was bad news for the designers. The bigger platform was wider and heavier, and it didn't fit well with the sleek, sharp look Bill had imagined. Bill was not happy with this decision. The bigger platform forced the design team to water down the car's proportions. The sweeping spear trim that was supposed to run smoothly along the side of the car had to be cut back or changed. The fastback shape became more of a fastback-style roof rather than a true boat tail. The final car ended up looking larger and heavier than the early models, losing some of the elegance and flow that the original design had. Still, the 1971 Riviera was a striking car. It was low and wide, and when you saw it on the road, you could tell it was different from the usual cars of that time. Even though the change in platform hurt the design, the car still had a strong personality. It was a bold move by GM and Bill Mitchell to make a mass-market car that tried something so wild and unique. But before the 1971 model arrived, the Buick Riviera had already been changing its look in the late 1960s. These styling changes set the stage for what the Boattail would become. Let's take a closer look at how the Riviera's design evolved during those years and what made the 1971 model so special. Styling changes in the late 1960s. In the mid to late 1960s, the Buick Riviera was going through some big changes. In 1966, a new design by David Halls brought a fresh look to the car. This Riviera had a slimmer, horizontal grille where the headlights were hidden behind panels. That was a clever design trick that made the front look smooth and clean. The windshield was more sharply slanted back than before, giving the car a sportier appearance. Another new feature was the removal of the vent wings on the side windows. These were little triangle windows that used to open separately, but Buick decided to get rid of them to create a sleeker look. One big change was that the razor edge effect, which was a style inspired by Bentley cars, disappeared from the roofline. Instead, the roof was given a modified fastback shape, meaning it sloped down more gently to the back of the car. This change made the Riviera look more modern and flowing. In the years that followed, the styling changes were smaller, but still noticeable. For example, in 1967, Buick introduced new V8 engines under the hood, but they also kept improving the car's look, making it sharper and more refined. By 1969, some important upgrades helped the car drive better, such as a new automatic transmission and a new power steering system. But in terms of styling, the Riviera kept its elegant shape, ready for a bigger transformation that was just around the corner. The 1971 Boattail. When 1971 arrived, Buick unveiled the most dramatic and unique Riviera the world had seen yet. The Boattail design was the most extreme example of the Boattail style Bill Mitchell loved. The back of the car was sharply tapered, creating a very unusual and unforgettable silhouette. This sharply pointed rear end gave the Riviera a one-of-a-kind look. It was unlike anything else on the road. People either loved the boldness or thought it was too much. There was no middle ground. The 1971 Riviera was definitely a car that made people stop and stare. However, the design had to change a little as new government rules came into effect. Starting in 1972 and going into 1973, rules about bumper size forced Buick to soften the sharp points on both the front and back of the car. These changes made the Boattail less dramatic by the time the last model rolled off the line. Still, the 1971 Riviera kept a strong presence on the road. Its bold rear design and fastback window made it stand out from the crowd. The rear window was inspired by the famous 1963 Corvette Stingray coupe, giving it a sporty, sleek look. Year by year, styling tweaks. Even though the overall design of the Boattail Riviera stayed mostly the same from 1971 to 1973, there were small styling updates each year. In 1972, Buick added a sweep spear side trim. This was a piece of chrome trim that ran along the side of the car, helping to break up the large body panels and add some visual interest. This trim line also served as a dividing line for two-tone paint jobs, which were very popular at the time. The 1972 model also featured new Buick road wheels that were very popular. These wheels helped the car look more elegant and completed the overall styling package. By 1973, the big government bumpers had to be added to meet new safety standards. These bumpers were taller and bulkier, which softened the car's sharp styling even more. Many fans felt that these bumpers took away some of the dramatic effects that made the earlier models so special. Who really designed the Boattail? One of the interesting mysteries about the 1971 Boattail Riviera is who actually designed it. It's not totally clear. The car was a team effort, and many people were involved, but nobody wanted to take full credit. Lee N. Mays, who became Buick's general manager in 1969, didn't like the Boattail at all. He once said, "I could never find anyone who admitted they designed it." This shows just how controversial the design was inside the company. The idea for the Boattail may have come from a famous Buick concept car called the Y-Job, which was created by Harley Earl in 1938. The Y-Job was a show car and had some styling cues similar to the 1963 Corvette Stingray. Bill Mitchell, who took over from Harley Earl as GM's styling chief, was the main person pushing the Boattail idea forward. Some credit goes to Donald C. Lasky, who was Buick's styling chief after Dave Mulls. However, Jerry Hirschberg, who led Buick's advanced design studio at the time, claimed the design was his own, even though he later said he thought the Boattail was a mistake. Jerry also explained that the original plan was to make the new Riviera a smaller car based on the GMA body platform. If they had done that, the Boattail could have been an exceptionally handsome and well-proportioned car. What works and what doesn't? Over the years, fastback designs like the Boattail usually worked better on smaller cars than big ones. For example, the American Motors Marlin, a fastback car built from 1965 to 1967, looked great when it was first designed as a smaller car called the Tarpon. But when company leaders insisted it be made bigger, the proportions were lost and the car did not do well. Similarly, the Buick Riviera's wheelbase, the distance between the front and rear wheels, grew over time. In 1963, it was 117 inches long. By 1966, it grew to 119 inches, and by 1971, it stretched again to 122 inches. The overall length of the car also increased. In 1971, the Riviera was about 217 inches long, which was almost 9.5 inches longer than the original 1963 model. Its width grew too to nearly 80 inches. With this extra size came more space inside. The hip room in the front seats grew by nearly 6 inches, and back seat passengers got over 3 extra inches. The trunk space also increased by 35%, giving the car more storage. But Bill Mitchell, the man who inspired the Boattail, didn't like how big and wide the car had become. He once said what hurt the Boattail was to widen it. It got so wide, a speedboat became a tugboat. That means the car lost some of its sleekness and speediness because it had gotten too large. Even so, the Boattail Riviera was not badly shaped. Despite its size, the design was balanced. The long hood helped to balance the sweeping fastback rear, making the car look strong and elegant. Buick proudly called the 1971 Riviera aerodynamic styling and said it was a longer, wider, daring new design. They claimed the car looked like it was moving, even when standing still. The word they chose to describe it was excitement. A design that grows on you. The third-generation Buick Riviera, built between 1971 and 1973, was very different from the cars that came before it. Its bold boat-tail rear end and fastback window design made it a striking car. Many people didn't like it at first, but over time, some grew to appreciate its wild and unique look. Think about how much work went into creating the boat-tail's special rear end and its beautiful fastback window inspired by the 1963 Corvette Stingray. It was a brave design choice for Buick, a company known mostly for more traditional and conservative cars. It's interesting to note that the man who helped design this version of the Riviera later went on to work on the Nissan 240Z concept, a famous sports car, after working on other big American muscle cars like the 1967 Pontiac Firebird and the 1968 Pontiac GTO. Performance and power. The 1971 Boattail Riviera kept the big 455 cubic inch engine, which was powerful for its time. However, in order to meet new rules about cleaner air and less pollution, Buick had to lower the engine's compression ratio. This means the engine didn't squeeze the air and fuel mixture as hard inside the cylinders. The change made the engine less powerful than before. In numbers, the gross horsepower dropped from 370 to 315. Torque, which is the twisting power that helps a car move from a stop, also went down from 510 to 450 pounds-feet. Even with these reductions, the Riviera's performance stayed pretty good. Buick made sure the car kept its reputation for being quick and strong by adjusting the final drive ratio, which affects how the engine's power is delivered to the wheels. In tests, the Riviera could go from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 8.4 seconds. That was impressive for a big car weighing over 4,200 pounds. However, the following year, Motor Trend couldn't match that time with the 1972 model, which took 9.7 seconds to hit 60 miles per hour. Still, that was a respectable performance for such a large vehicle. Buick's own words about the car's power were simple but confident. Something to believe in. That showed how proud they were of the Riviera's engine and speed, despite some compromises made for pollution controls. Problematic features. One of the special features of the 1971 Boattail Riviera was GM's flow-through ventilation system. This system used louvers, which are slatted vents located in the trunk area, to help pull air out of the passenger cabin. The idea was to keep the inside fresh and well ventilated. But this clever system turned out to have a serious problem. It was discovered that exhaust gases from the car's tailpipe could sometimes be sucked back into the passenger compartment through the vents. This was dangerous because those gases contain carbon monoxide, which can cause poisoning or asphyxiation. Because of this risk, the ventilation system was removed after the 1971 model year. Buick quickly replaced it with a safer design in the following years. This example shows that even well-intended innovations can have unintended consequences. Another feature that caused a lot of controversy was the vinyl roof. Starting in 1971, Buick offered vinyl roofs on the Riviera. These were basically fake leather coverings placed on the top of the car, meant to give it a more luxurious and stylish appearance. However, not everyone at GM liked this idea. Bill Mitchell, the man who championed the Boattail design, was strongly against the vinyl roofs. In fact, he was so upset about it that he nearly got into physical fights with Buick management over the decision to add vinyl tops. Despite his protests, the The vinyl roofs were installed and stayed on the Riviera until 1973. Safety and handling improvements. Besides engine and styling, the 1971 Riviera had some important mechanical updates that improved safety and driving comfort. One big change was the introduction of a new perimeter frame. This replaced the older cruciform frame used on earlier models. The perimeter frame is wrapped around the outside of the car, giving better protection inside impacts. This was a key safety improvement at a time when car safety was becoming more important. The new frame also allowed the Riviera to use the Electra's 4-link rear axle suspension system. This system gave the car better stability and a smoother ride by allowing the rear wheels to move more independently over bumps and rough roads. Motor Trend testers also praised the Riviera's brakes. When tested from 60 miles per hour, the car stopped in just 135.2 feet. That was nearly 40 feet shorter than the stopping distance of the Toronado, a similar GM model. This showed that the Riviera had excellent braking performance, helping the driver stay safe. Minor styling changes and more problems in 1972 and 1973. After the big restyling in 1971, Buick made only small changes to the Riviera in 1972 and 1973. The 1972 model got a new egg crate grille and slightly changed taillights. The vinyl moldings along the body sides became standard, adding a little more shine to the car's look. The full flow-through ventilation louvers were removed because the system had not worked well and was unsafe. To replace that, Buick offered an optional power-operated sunroof for those who wanted fresh air. Under the hood, the 1972 Riviera added a solenoid-actuated throttle stop. This was a device that helped prevent dieseling, which is when an engine keeps running after the ignition is turned off. This made the car easier to handle and reduced engine wear. California's tougher smog laws meant that Buick had to add a new smog control system in 1972. Also, for the first time, horsepower was advertised in 1972 net, rather than gross terms, lowering the figure from 315 to 250. Even with this drop in numbers, the car's performance did not change much in real driving. In 1973, the Riviera got a more noticeable facelift. The hood line was turned down and the grille design was changed. Larger fender-mounted parking lights were added. Thicker moldings on the rocker panels gave the car a heavier, stronger look. The taillights were redesigned and surrounded by a trim panel. The rear license plate moved to the center of the bumper instead of being off to the left side like before. This was part of complying with new safety rules. The biggest visual change in 1973 was the softening of the sharp boat tail look at the back. The front bumper also became heavier and bigger to meet federal crash standards. Unfortunately, these bigger bumpers added about 240 pounds of weight compared to the 1971 model. Mechanically, the car stayed mostly the same in 1973. However, stricter emissions rules hurt fuel economy. Owners usually got between 8 and 11 miles per gallon, which was not very good, especially when gas prices were rising. The only good news was that the engine ran well on regular leaded gasoline. A bold design for the wrong market. Looking back, many believe the 1971 Riviera was one of Bill Mitchell's biggest mistakes during his time as GM's design chief. But it is easy to understand why he was so passionate about the boat-tail concept. He wanted to fight back against cars becoming too plain and boring. The Riviera was definitely more interesting than the very plain 1972 Ford Thunderbird. But the Thunderbird sold much better, showing that buyers often preferred safer and more familiar designs. Large fastback cars like the Riviera did not usually sell well. The pointed tail of the 1971 and 1972 Rivieras and the bulky vertical C-pillar, the pillar between the side and rear windows, made the car look awkward to some people. The Boattail Riviera might have been too radical for a big personal coupe like it was, but it could have done better if it had been a smaller, luxury-focused, grand touring coupe. This might have helped sales and made the Boattail design more suitable. Either that, or Buick should have dropped the Boattail idea and chosen a style that fit better with a large car and the Riviera's image. Legacy. Despite this, the Boattail remains a striking chapter in Buick's story, an emblem of fearless design ambition that, while divisive, continues to captivate collectors and fans who appreciate its unique blend of luxury and audacity. Thanks for watching. What do you think of this bold yet impressive design of the car? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel.